In this video, I'm going to be talking about when I'm talking about learning Vedic astrology, like what are you actually learning? What are you going to get out of it? How are you going to use it? And so this isn't about understanding people's personalities. The way I use Vedic astrology is to see compatibility between people and the timing of events. That's the main things I use it for. You can also relatively easily see what kind of career someone's going to have and dynamics in relationships, the nature of their mother, their father, and overall like vibe and life direction. And so you need to you need to understand the significance of all the planets, what they do and what they represent. And this isn't just something you read one time, you're always learning more. And so I might tell you what Venus means, but to truly understand, you have to learn what Venus feels like so that you can describe to someone what Venus is without just having it memorized, but by having it actually be understood. And so I could just go over the significance of all the planets. I will do that in a moment. But you also need to learn what signs the planet controls. There's 12 signs, and every planet controls one or two of them. Mars controls Aries and Scorpio. Aries is the first sign, Scorpio is the eighth. Venus controls 2 and 7, which is Taurus and Libra. Mercury is 3 and 6, Gemini and Virgo. Moon is 4, Cancer. Sun is 5, Leo. Jupiter is 9 and 12, Sagittarius and Pisces. Saturn is 10 and 11, Capricorn and Aquarius. And I don't expect you to memorize that just off of what I said, but you will have to do a lot of studying, watch a lot of videos, and eventually you will get the hang of it. And so my first and most important piece of advice is to not watch any Western astrologers. If you're looking something up and it doesn't say Vedic, don't watch it. It means it's Western. So it should say Vedic or Jyotish. The reason that I recommend avoiding all Western astrologers is because from what I can see, they are much less knowledgeable. They fall into Western astrology because it's the only thing that they had access to, not because they chose to do it, not because they understood the difference and made the decision for themselves. So if you, as a brand new person to astrology, if you saw Western and Vedic and you studied it, it almost makes no sense to ever use Western astrology. And so I believe that if anybody uses Western astrology, it's only for convenience because they don't want to have to relearn everything. And they often get defensive about it. They get upset when confronted about it because they are attached to it. And part of their self-esteem and ego has been built off of their knowledge of it. And so by saying that Western astrology is not reliable, they feel insulted because that which gives them confidence means nothing. And so people still have helpful experiences going to Western astrologers. In my opinion, not because it's accurate, but because the astrologer is intuitive or good with psychology. And so I believe a Western astrologer could give someone, like generally speaking, just as good advice without even looking at their chart, just by talking to them like a human being and then saying what they feel. And they'd generally be accurate. Vedic astrology is different. Like, yes, you can do that. But Vedic astrology is like, what happened November of 2023 for you? Or between October and December, something big happened right here. I think it was related to this and that. And the other person would be like, oh my God, that's exactly when this happened, is a huge event. Like, yeah. And so Vedic astrology, like we're looking at the time periods in which you were born, the transits you've been through, and how it shaped you into who you are today. And so it's like Western astrology is like just personality, blah, blah, blah. But Vedic astrology is like the dynamic with the mother was like this, and the relationship with the father was like this, and this caused you to be like this. This event happened here, and then you progress towards this, and where you are at in your life right now is you're currently focused on this, and if you want to get more out of it, do this and this instead of that. And it's like getting more out of whatever you're currently going through. So by understanding what the circumstances are in your life, you can get more out of it, the spiritual circumstances, the astrological circumstances. And so to compare Western and Vedic astrology is based on the seasons. It's a symbolic system. So it's not based in reality. It's an artificial, man-made system, which still has some validity, but not for the reasons you think. Now, so is there any validity with the seasons and stuff? Yeah, I'm sure, maybe, but it should be a small fraction of the techniques you use. It should be a small fraction of the techniques you use. It should not be the entire basis of what you work with. Like, if someone was going to use the Western astrology techniques, it should be like 20 or 30% of what you do, or 10%, or 5%. It shouldn't be like the whole system you use. And so here's something that's very important to understand in regards to why Western astrology might be accurate and things like numerology. Because like numerology, is it really based in reality? To an extent, right? It's not based on the planets or anything. The Gregorian calendar, or however you say it, like, is that a real thing? Not really, but it still has results. It still has effects. And so the reason for that is that the universe communicates with you using signs and omens. Even if it's man-made, the universe will communicate with you using it. And so I could invent a new language that's completely not based in anything and seemingly totally random. But if I document it and write it and teach it to people, it becomes a part of their consciousness. And if there's written records of how to do it, then the universe can use those man-made symbols and systems in order to communicate certain information to somebody. And what I mean by that is that synchronicities, like seeing 111, 222, or you think about something and then an object passes you that exact moment, or you are thinking of something and the lyrics to the song you're listening to says the answer. Or like you're thinking of a word and then you see the word at the exact same time. Those things line up. That's how the universe can use these systems to communicate with you. So when you're looking at a Western astrology chart, it can still spark your intuition, and there's still patterns inside of it. And so even though it's not really based in reality, it can still be used. The reason that I prefer Vedic astrology as well, here's one thing. Vedic astrology is still not 100% based in reality. If Western astrology was 30%, if Western astrology was 30% based in reality, Vedic astrology would be 70 or 80%. And so the reason I say this is that Vedic, so this is still debatable. What I'm about to say, I'm still figuring out myself. Vedic is based on whole signs. What that means is there's 12 signs, 12 houses. Well, some people say there's 13, but forget about that for a second. There's 12 signs. Each sign in Vedic astrology is split amongst 30 degrees. Or it's not split, it is 30 degrees long. And so 30 times 12 is 360. Like a circle, So the sky, you're looking straight, and then you do a 360 all around. There's a sign, 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 30 degrees. Thus, you split all of them up, 12 in a circle, right? They make all of them even in Vedic. 1 second. Oh, Eat an egg really quick. I'm hungry. In reality, every sign is not 30 degrees. Some are like 14, some are 48. So when you're saying this is 15 degrees of Scorpio, if you actually took out a compass and you looked at that direction, it might actually be slightly a different constellation. But here's the thing. In accordance with 0 degrees north, the sign, the planet in the Vedic chart is still the exact degrees. It might be 170 degrees position. But the sign that it lines up with actually might be different, but the 170 degrees is still the same. So if you take a compass and you look that direction, the planet is still that direction. Western astrology is off by like 27 degrees. So like if the sun is at 1 degrees north, in Western astrology, they'll say it's 24 degrees. It's 23 degrees off. So that's not even remotely based in reality, right? So Vedic astrology, the degrees is the same, but the degrees is the same, but what sign they say it is in doesn't always line up with reality. It lines up like 85% of the time. But it kind of doesn't matter. For whatever reason, I'm still trying to understand it doesn't matter. Because it still works. And when I say it works, I mean you can line up the timing of events to be incredibly accurate in the nature of people's karma. Like what works for them and what doesn't. Someone might try to start a business who doesn't have the combinations to do business, and it's going to fail no matter what. There's nothing they're going to do to really be super successful. It's impossible for them, right? Or it's like someone trying to be a professional athlete who doesn't have the astrology in their chart to be a professional athlete. It can't. You can't. You can become a better athlete, but you're not going to become a professional. And so we can see that with the chart. It doesn't matter if it's, what I was just describing. It still works. And so there are certain times where this is accounted for in certain techniques so that even though what I said is a fact, it still doesn't matter because certain astrologers use certain techniques to already make up for that anyway. And so techniques will be like, if the planet is at the very border between two signs, you can kind of pretend it's in the previous sign. Like it might be 1 degree Cancer. And you might be able to give predictions for if it was in Gemini, say the same things as if it was Gemini, and it would still be accurate. It's kind of both. Because it's not just like... So there's different systems that have different techniques. One system would be like, it's not about when it's like 1 degree off, and then poop, it's in the other sign, it completely changes. No, it's like when you're in the middle of the sign, you have the full strength, and then when you get close to the next sign, the planet, then it has the qualities of both. And so that's something that some astrologers will follow. So it still makes up for it. So I hope you understood what I was just saying. If what I said was not clear, please leave a comment so I can explain it better and then remake the video later more clear. This is just to get you guys started. I'll probably remove this and redo it better later. But I just need to get something now. Okay, so I covered why Vedic astrology is more accurate than Western, and why some people argue Vedic astrology can still be inaccurate due to what I just said, and I explained why that actually doesn't matter. So Vedic astrology is still totally accurate. The only thing is, how reliable are you? How good are you at reading it? Astrology is never wrong. The astrologer is the one who can be wrong. It just, if you're failing to understand it, is the thing. And so, I'll go over the significance of the planets. So, we have Sun. Let me try to think about it in the order of the planets, in accordance to the Sun. There's Sun, there's Mercury, and then Venus, Earth, and there's Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. That's right? Is that right? I never like think about like the astronomy. So Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Moon, and then there's Rahu and Ketu. We don't use Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. Well, you can use it, but it's not used often because it's not as that's like the cherry on top. You don't need that to start. You just need to get the base of your cake first. You look at the decorations for the cake later. What is the core of the cake is what we want to know first. And so Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is the north node of the moon. Ketu is the south node of the moon. And so what that means is that like the moon has like, I don't know exactly how it works, but something like the moon goes a little bit north or a little south and it wavers between those 2 points. And the north point is Rahu and the south is Ketu. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but essentially Rahu and Ketu are considered their own planets. But it's not, we don't use the word planet in Vedic astrology. We call them grahas, which is like bodies of energy. But we'll just call it planets. And so Rahu represents foreign things. Anybody who is a different race than you or speaks a different language is automatically Rahu, according to you. That never changes. And is if you cross a border into another country, you are in Rahu territory. Any country other than where you were born. And I'm not saying where you grew up. I'm talking about where you were born. I believe that's what matters. Rahu represents technology because technology is a foreign thing. It is the future. It's obsession. Rahu is never satisfied. It's never full. It's always hungry. It can represent illusions. It can represent distractions. It can represent Maya. Maya is the illusion of reality that we live in that takes us away from God. But Rahu isn't just like the devil or anything. There's times in the mythology where Rahu saved the earth. Rahu is like a humanitarian. Rahu controls the sign of Aquarius, which is about community and people, innovation, technology, new things. Because Rahu infuses its qualities into the sign of Aquarius. Saturn also controls Aquarius. It's co-ruled by Rahu. So Rahu's energy is inside the sign of Aquarius. So anyone with certain planets anyone who has planets in the sign of Aquarius, what that planet represents in their life will have the themes of Rahu infused inside of it. So if it's Sun in Aquarius, your father will have themes of Rahu. If it's Moon, the mother will have themes of Rahu. If it's Mercury, your friends will have the themes of Rahu. If it's Venus, the woman in your life or your wife will have the themes of Rahu. Right? So that Aquarius type energy. And that would be different than if Rahu was sitting with one of those planets. Like, what if you had Rahu sitting with Sun? That's different than if it was in the sign. Rahu with Sun can, like, give someone in certain circumstances, like, a very big ego because Rahu, like, multiplies things. Rahu will act like whatever planet or sign it sits in. So if Rahu is in the sign of Gemini, it's going to pretend like it's in Mercury. It's gonna act as if it was Mercury in your chart, but with the themes of Rahu there, right? And so if Rahu is in the sign of Cancer, it's going to act like it's the moon. Excuse me. And if Rahu was sitting with the sun, Rahu would be like a second sun sitting with itself, multiplying the energy in the area. And so now we have to talk about Ketu. Ketu is astrology. Astrology is Ketu. I mean, Ketu is intuition. It's non-attachment. Non-attachment meaning that ultimate peace. You're not holding on to anything. It's non-desperate. It is not needy. It is whole with nothing. Sometimes Ketu would take things away from you to cut off your attachments so that you can work towards that release. Release of physical reality, of Maya, the escape of Maya. It's called moksha, enlightenment. Ketu wants the release. It wants to leave this reality and become one with God. So K2 is like, it represents the past, but in a lot of the time it's really about being in the present moment. So it cuts things, but it can also bring things out of the past. When K2 goes over your Venus, you might meet a partner from past life, or they will feel like you already know them. And so why is that the case? Because K2 is that non-attachment, it's one with God, it's that consciousness of unity with everything. And so when it affects a certain planet, it takes you or that planet into that state. So because every person is connected to that consciousness, so like if you shine a flashlight on the wall, the light on the wall is not the source of the light. You have to see where the light is coming from. That's the flashlight. Our soul is like the light on the wall. God is the flashlight. So we are the manifestation of God. I shine a flashlight on the wall. The flashlight is God. The light on the wall is you. Make sense? So K2 understands that. So the reason you meet someone who feels like you already know them, it's because like you're feeling that God source consciousness type thing. Or you may actually have karma with them from past life that you didn't pay off fully or whatever. You know, you owe them, or it's not just about owing somebody. It's also about there's unlearned lessons. There's things that are unfinished that you need to work through together. You could have been a female in past life and now you're male. And the partner is now, that was your spouse, and now my dog is snoring. It's like you could have been the wife in the past life and now you're the husband or whatever. Good girl. So K2 can really bring powerful spiritual experiences. So let's talk about the moon. Rahu and Ketu are related to the moon. Remember the north and the south node of the moon? I don't even know what the node means, to be honest. But the moon is the seed of karma. The moon is impregnated with all your karmas. And the moon germinates throughout your life, and the fruits of that is your karma, whether good or bad. So it's the seed of your karma. It's implanted in your consciousness when you're born, and that plant grows. And when that plant grows into a certain age, then it starts producing fruit. Like the first, I think it's the first 8 years of your life. I heard from somebody that the first 4 years is karma from the mother, and then the next 4 years is karma from the father, and then after that, then you gain some responsibility for what happens in your life. But at the same time, there is a sense of lack of control often until the age of 28 to 36 in a different type of way. So it's like if something bad happens to you the first 4 years of life, they say it's because your mother's karma is, you're taking on the mother's karma. And the age 4 to 8 would be, because 0 to 3 and then 4 to 8 is you're paying off the karma's father, the father's karma. Sorry. I don't know if that's 100% true. Something I heard before, something to think about, right? And then so it's like you could say at age 9, boom, it starts producing fruit. Or maybe it's age 12, because then you have to have 4 years of actually doing your own thinking. At the same time, in another aspect, you don't gain your identity more until it starts maturing at 15, and then at 16 is when you gain the sense of autonomy of your life. That's because Jupiter matures. It starts reaching maturity at I believe it's 14 years of age, and then by the 15th birthday, then your Jupiter has reached maturity. So from the 14th to the 15th birthday, I believe that's when Jupiter starts the maturing process, and then it's crystallized at 15. And so when we talk about age activation in Vedic terms, we will actually call it age 16, because when you're born, that's your first year. When you're 0 years old, that's the first year. So age 16 would be 15 years old. And so when they say maturity at age 16, that's 15 years old. And so what that type of maturity represents is Jupiter is the individual themselves. It's like that which experiences, right? If you want to talk about physical maturity, Mars is the physical body. And Mars matures at age 28, which would be 27 years old. And, well, if you want to look at Saturn, Saturn matures at 36. Rahu and Ketu mature, I think, 42. Moon matures at, I think it's 24. Or 23. And then Venus is like 22 or 23. I don't remember. Sun is, I think, I don't remember. Venus, Moon is 21, 22. I don't know. Sun is like 22 or 23. I don't remember. Maybe, I think it's 24. I don't remember those ones. Sorry. Mercury is, I don't remember, to be honest, what Mercury is. But anyway, you get your driver's license at 16 years old. But you can get your permit at age 15. So that kind of seems off. It should be 1 year sooner, right? According to Jupiter. Or here's the thing. When people talk about Jupiter maturing at age 16, I don't know whether they're talking about 16 years old or age 16, which would be 15 years old. Because sometimes these teachers do not clarify what they're talking about. And I get frustrated. There is that correlation, though. Jupiter maturity, you get your driver's license. That's when you can leave home on your own, and the curfew isn't there anymore, right? Age 16 is when you don't have a curfew, I think, in the United States. Or is it 18? I think it's 16. I don't remember. But that correlates with the Jupiter maturity. You become your own sovereign person. Jupiter is morality, direction, guidance. So at age 16 or 15 years old, that's when you develop like the ability to like more so make your own decisions and think for yourself more. Before that, you're much more at the discretion of your parents to give you that guidance. Jupiter is teacher. Having a strong Jupiter means, okay, so where do you get your source of guidance in life? Look at where Jupiter is. What house? So if Jupiter was in your first house, you could have this natural just understanding of morality and direction and guidance and what to do in your life direction that's more clear if it's in the first house, because that's you. It's your head. Jupiter in the fourth house, that's your heart. That means like instead of intellectually, you feel it more in the heart. You can, sorry, my dog's stuck in the couch cushion. Jupiter in the fourth house, instead of your mind being your guide, your heart is the guide. Or it's the fourth house. Fourth house is the home. The guide might live in your home, or you might meet them in a home type setting or spend time with them in a home type setting. Let's say you have Jupiter in the third house. You might be really good at finding good information online. Third house is it's communication. It's reading and writing. And so it's speaking, so it's communication, it's media. So if Jupiter's in the third house, you might be really good at understanding what is good and bad information online or in a book. You'll be able to tell the difference between good media and bad media, or if Jupiter's in the ninth house, you might have a really good teacher when you travel for school. Or the fifth house, Jupiter in the fifth house, you might learn through children, watching and observing children or having children. Your children could end up being your teachers as you raise them. Jupiter in the 10th house, someone in your career might be really the one that might be where you get your guidance. In the 6th house, you might learn a lot of wisdom from your enemies. 7th house, your spouse will be like your teacher. Jupiter in the 7th house isn't always the most enjoyable position because instead of romance and love, your partner becomes more of a teacher rather than a lover, right? And so Jupiter in the 11th house, it's like your network circle. Jupiter in the 2nd house, the family. 12th house, it might be a spiritual guide. You have Jupiter in the 12th house, you might have spirit guides that you are in communication with, and you can sense them, because 12th house is like non-physical. So like your dreams, your teachers are your dreams, or you literally have a spiritual connection with these archangels or protective figures or whatever spirits in your life. You can feel them and sense them, and depending on certain combinations, literally communicate with them. Or they might live in a place very far away. So that's how you can see where Jupiter is and how it might manifest for you. Where are you going to find your guides and your teachers? But what's the strength of Jupiter? What sign is it in? That's really how you see the strength. That's a big part of it. Is Jupiter in a comfortable sign, or a sign that it's not comfortable in a sign that it doesn't perform well in? So if Jupiter is in... Jupiter is considered debilitated in the sign of Capricorn. That can make someone very materialistic. It's not always a bad thing. It can help them make a lot of money. It can make them like... they are just materially savvy, physical savvy. They are like good with the world, right? And so that might not be the best for leaving your body in meditation and meeting God directly like that. But it doesn't mean you can't develop spiritually. It's just your life path is going to be more so in the world rather than, being like a celibate type thing. And that's not good or bad. It does come with its own karmic challenges, though, because it's still debilitated. Even though there's benefits, there's still negatives associated with it. And so if a planet is debilitated, there are karmas to pay with that. Most often. There's karma everywhere, but you also have to look at something called the dispositor. The dispositor is where the energy flows. So if your 7th house is Aries, Aries is controlled by Mars. Now you have to look at where Mars is. Let's say Mars is in the 5th house. That means the dispositor of the 7th house, which is Mars, because the 7th house is Aries. Aries is controlled by Mars. Aries is going towards Mars. 7th is going to the 5th. So that's actually a good position, because the 1st, 5th, and 9th house are Dharma houses. When a planet sits there, it's usually a good thing. And by good, I mean easier. Because difficult isn't always bad, but it does cause pain and suffering. So pain and suffering is real. You want to say someone might say there's no such thing as good and bad. Well, suffering and pleasure still exist. Suffering and joy still exist. Doesn't mean joy is good or suffering is bad, right? That's what they want to say. But in practicality, there is suffering involved. Depending on certain positions. The 5th house, the 1st, 5th, and 9th usually are easy. Not always easy, but good. But if those houses are damaged, it's a good house that's getting damaged, right? And so, like, if you have a really strong planet in a bad house, it might help you overcome the problems, or it might make the problems worse. It just depends on what's going on, or like how it's actually playing out. So let's say the 7th lord, the lord is the planet that controls the sign, the dispositor, where the energy flows. So let's say you have the 7th lord in the 6th house. 6th house causes the most hardship in your life, conflict, obstacles. Causes the hardship. So it's also enemies. So 7th lord in the 6th house, your marriage is going to be a lot of work. There's going to be conflict and a lot of things to work through. And it's going to be less about love and romance and more about the hustle with the partner. And if you're that type of an individual, you might love that, depending on the combination of what's going on. So someone with that position, it's like their partner needs to be a part of their daily routine. They need to be like in the same job together, depending, not always exactly like this, but like you want your partner to do the same things as you and stick with you as your part of your daily routine, and you spend most of your time together working together, because 6th house is daily routines. 7th lord, so 7th house is the partnership. Partnership is connected to daily routines. You want to be with your partner 24/7 and share the same routine with them, all this and that. If your 7th lord is in the 12th house, then it's like 12th house is isolation and escape. And that could look like you like to escape with your partner. Or it could mean you like to escape your partner. Which one is it going to be? You have to look at different things. Your partner just might feel like they don't exist. You're married to them, but they're not really there. That's one thing that could happen because it's the house of loss. 12th house is loss. It's escape. So someone's 7th Lord in the 12th house, they might feel like their partner really isn't there. They're there, but they don't feel like they're there. But in cases where you have a deeper spiritual connection, it can bring out the deeper spiritual nature because it brings you to that release. It brings you that the loss of the physical reality and into the spiritual. But 12th house is also bed pleasures. It's the house of escape. You can escape with sex. You can escape by falling asleep. You can escape by taking drugs. You can escape by dying because the 12th house is the house of it's one of the houses of death. And so doesn't mean your partner is going to die. Well, everybody's going to die, always. That combination doesn't mean they're going to die young or anything. There's other things you have to see, and it's usually not the 12th house that's going to do that, from what I know. And so if you have, the 6th, 8th, and 12th house cause more hardship. So 7th Lord in the 12th house, it's not the easiest position. It's not always bad. And there are good sides to it too, but there's karma involved. That's more difficult sometimes. 7th Lord in the 8th house, karma. 7th Lord in the 6th house, karma. More difficult karmas, 6, 8, and 12, right? And so that's how you can see, so let's say, the planet that controls the house. So if your 7th house is Aries, we have to see how strong Mars is. Now let's say Mars is in a weak position. The planet that controls the 7th house is weak. So even if your 7th house has a strong planet there and it's good, if the planet that controls that house is weak, it's still going to cause a lot of hardship. So just because you have Venus and Pisces in the 7th house, an exalted Pisces, doesn't mean your relationship's going to be easy. If the planet that controls that sign, Jupiter controls Pisces. If Jupiter's fucked up, it doesn't matter if you have an exalted Venus in the 7th house, right? Because, so you can't just be like, oh, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Libra, blah, blah, blah. Because it's like, well, you're saying that I'm a Libra. Well, the sun is the father, so you're talking more about your father. Who are you? You're Jupiter. So if you're going to tell someone what your sign is, you should probably tell them what your Jupiter sign is. But even then, the 1st house also shows a lot about you. Sun might show your confidence and self-esteem, but it's largely the father. And so your confidence and self-esteem is largely based on the relationship with the father. So the sun shows you the father and how the father relationship affected you. How is your self-esteem and confidence, right? What about the mother? The mother is like the emotional regulation, the comfort and nourishment and sense of peace. It's different than the father. The father and the mother provide different things. Sometimes the mother has to become the father, but it will never be the same result because the energy is different. Want to look at your friends? Okay, Mercury. How did your friends impact? Mercury is also communication. The friends you spend time with influence how you communicate. You hang out with people who listen to rap music and they like to say certain slang. You're going to talk like that because that's the Mercury you're surrounding yourself with. Your friends. Mercury is also communication, right? Mercury is also largely associated with, the 3rd house is a house controlled by Mercury where short distance travel. You have to travel a short distance to see your friends, right? So how do you communicate? How you communicate is based off of the relationship with the friends, largely. But it's also the family. The family is the 2nd house. The 2nd house is your accent. Your family gives you your accent. 2nd house is also values. Your family gives you your values. 2nd house is also assets. In Vedic astrology, how money works is that the money anybody in the family owns is all shared, basically. So that's the wealth of your family. A lot of the time, parents don't want to give money to the kids, this and that. But when you look at Vedic astrology, a big part of it is it seems to me that the money of the whole family is supposed to be the money of the whole family. Like, yes, there is inheritance seen inside of the chart, whether you're going to get that money or not. But the money, the resource accumulation of your family, like, you can see that and how strong your second house is based on certain positions. Strong doesn't always mean more, though, by the way. So, do you have a lot of money? Does your family have a lot of money? Look at the second house. That's one thing you have to look at for that. And so, it's not always shared because, like I said, sometimes you get it or you don't based off of your inheritance in the chart. And it isn't always exactly shared, but they do provide for you. It's also like, second house is the house of feeding. Are you getting fed? It's the house of food, right? Fourth house is kind of nourishment, but second house is also related to that, right? So if your family might have money, but if they don't give you any food and you're starving, then like that's how you look at the second house, right? So it's like, what are you actually receiving from the family? But then what you inherit is different. So like your ability to get fed. And when you become an adult, it's more than just the family, but because it's your ability to feed yourself too. Yeah, so that's just a little bit of information on how the planets manifest in your life and how they determine like who you become. The sun shows the father and how the father affected the sun in your chart. Your experience with the father in your life and how they shaped your confidence or lack thereof. Or sun-like figures. Your relationship to any authority figure in your life that you have experienced that has a masculine energy. Moon would be mother figures. It could be a teacher in school. It doesn't have to be the mother. It just, how is the dynamic with that type of person in your chart? And if that dynamic changes over time, that's because your chart actually does change over time. From age to 0 to 11, you have to look at the chart differently than between age 12 to 23 versus 24 to 36, 35. I messed up the counting, I think. And I think that's right. So, like, your chart changes every 12 years. And in multiple different ways. Like, there's other techniques. Your chart is like a clock. It changes as you get older and it mixes and it... So that's how you see, like, I used to have relationships like this to authority, but now I get along with them great. Well, that's because something changed in your chart to allow that. Right? And so, by knowing what you're working with, you can increase the multiplication of the positive results at the end, right? It might sound like, oh, I have no free will. I'm only going to get better when it's destined. Kinda, yeah. But you can multiply that. So if you're a 1 out of 10 in this area of life and you're destined to be a 3 out of 10 at least, if you know astrology, you can like shortcut that and get it a little bit better than it would have been if you didn't know astrology. Is my belief. It's not proven that is 100% true, but that's my belief in how I see it. Because here's the thing. If you're destined to learn about astrology and then use astrology to figure something out, maybe it's already in the chart to begin with, right? So if you're destined to figure this thing out and work harder as a result of knowing something, was that already destined to begin with anyway? You know, so that's something that we have to just kind of observe. Like, pay attention as you live your life over the course of several years, dozens of years. If it appears that you're making things better with it, or if you're just seeing what's already going to happen and you can never avoid anything. But here, look. What you can always do is make peace with it. Two people, let's say you have you now, and then there's an alternative reality where you experience the exact same thing. If you perceive it differently, you will suffer less. Even though you're going through the exact same things, 100% to the T, one suffers more than the other because of their perspective as they go through it, their attachment with it, how they judge it, right? So if it happens to be the case that we cannot change destiny, or at least change certain things, because some things I do believe that, according to theory, some things you cannot change, some things you can improve, and some things you might be able to avoid completely. There's some things that cannot change, though. But if it's possible that nothing can ever change, your experience of it can, to where you don't suffer as much, and you might be able to find some joy in it somehow. So I'm just thinking right now, do I go into listing all the planets right now, or do I end the video there and then start a second one where I more clearly explain the planets? I kind of end up saying the same thing multiple times, but I guess I'll go over the planets I haven't really talked about. So Jupiter's Jupiter, I think I'll have to turn to a second video, and you're going to have to hear me repeat myself multiple times before you remember it. So if I do repeat myself, that's okay anyway, because you're going to need me to repeat myself. So I'll just make a second video with more information shortly. This is just kind of just to get you the vibe of how does Vedic astrology, like, really, not how does it work, but what is it even to begin with, right? So, thanks.